Hello and welcome to yet another Behind the Curtain podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. And I want to thank our guests here today. Once again, we are joined by Kelly Watkins. We're joined by Cole Watkins, team leader of the Bridge Group. We have this guy to my side here, Taylor. And then myself, Nick Palamento, both team leads for the Bridge Group as well. And today we're really wanting to get into, can you be a part-time agent and actually be successful? I think a lot of people have that dream and they hear about real estate and they think, oh, I'm going to do that part-time. And then maybe they get into it and it's way more difficult than they thought. And they're like, how is this possible that you could even have a job and do this? But we have somebody with us who has done that exact thing. And it's funny. None of us thought about it. We were talking to you and like, didn't even come up.
Yeah, no, it was the closest person to me that should have, been the first person in my mind. Didn't even, I don't know why. I didn't even think about it.
Me.
But you did it, and spoiler alert, you weren't just part-time. You outperformed most full-time agents in your first year as a part-time agent. And so that's what we want to get into is how did you do that? How was that possible? What separated the work that you did and what you were able to accomplish? How did you get that success while also having a job? And I think that's, if we can demystify that, I think there's a lot of people out there that would do this.
I think that the market that we were in is not too different than the market that we're in now.
Normal market.
Not to say that we're not in a down market, because I think if you're looking at just pure numbers, you could say compared to last year and the year before, we are in technically a down market. But the market that we were in was a pre-COVID market where interest rates weren't 2s and 3s. They just weren't. And inventory was a little, closer to what we are now. So the thing is that I feel like Kelly was able to make that transition going from part-time to full-time, which is what a lot of people want to do, and they never end up doing it. So Taylor, give us a little bit of an update on what the past market has looked like up till today and why we might be in a down market.
Yeah, so nationally, it's a lot worse than it is, at least here in Houston. We're very well insulated in Houston. We're a pretty resilient market, but right around 4.2 million home sales forecasted for this year on a national scale, which is the lowest it's been since that 2008 market, the legitimate like doom and gloom housing market. 2022 nationally, somewhere around 5 million sales. 2021 around 6. We're only down about 10%, give or take, in Houston right now. So while it is down, to your point, it's not nearly as doom and gloom as people like to think. And numbers
here in Houston.
Here in Houston at least, And numbers wise, I mean, we're sitting pretty well here at the Bridge Group at least. Really,
we're one of the few teams and organizations that are actually ahead of where we were this time last year. And so we're going to finish off, maybe not crushing our goal, but we're going to be very close to it, which is ahead of where we finished last year. So I think that was one of the things we wanted to go into this is, if our team, which is made up of a bunch of agents, is ahead of where we were last year, that means we're actually making gains. The agents that are with us, that means that they are actually ahead of where they were last year. And I know that you can look at like Rio, for instance. Rio did 14 last year, 15 last year. And then, he's already at 23, 24. And that maybe 4 days have gone by since I've checked. So he could be at 30.
Yeah.
But the thing is that, what happened? Like, you can't blame it on the market. You can't make an excuse of the market. It's what you're doing on a daily basis. That's the reason why you're either succeeding or failing.
And we've talked about this before. Like if you go back to 2008, there were agents selling homes.
Yeah. Someone sold those 4.2 million homes.
Right? Like
Exactly.
It's not that home sales just don't happen. There might be less, but I think what we're actually seeing is the people who are doing it part-time but maybe aren't prospecting, they don't have a schedule, they don't have any sort of plan, are not selling the 1 or 2 homes that would have added to that increase in that volume that would say it's a normal market. I think just a lot of those people, it's so much more difficult, and so they either quit, they get out of the market, they're or out of the industry, and they're not doing real estate anymore, and that's what's contributing to some of that fall. Whereas if they had a plan, if they followed a process, if they knew what they were doing, you'd probably have a similar amount of home sales. It's just more difficult, so people quit.
Right.
I think the agents that are experiencing a down market probably are doing exactly what they did last year and the year before that, which doesn't cut it right now.
Well, to your point, I think that the majority of agents that I know of, like were born into the real estate market in 2020, 2021, trying to get in on the gold rush of COVID, right? Or the COVID market, rather, not COVID. But it's
I don't think
Unless you're
trying to get
Pfizer.
COVID.
maybe
But,
Pfizer could get in on the
right,
gold
yeah,
rush.
that
but-
was the gold rush. But but they got that, and the COVID market turned good agents lazy. And then it turned all agents into it kind of mismanaged our expectations of what it meant to be a real estate agent. So it took our prospecting and it kind of turned that idea of prospecting more from outbound to like, oh, I should be getting inbound calls. Like I should just make a post about real estate or a tour or whatever else, and I'll count that as prospecting. Social media is not prospecting, but social or the last couple of years kind of gave it that definition.
There was so much low hanging fruit, is what I call it. It was just like, here's all the apples that have fallen off the ground. And I can close those and do really well. And that's what the market was.
a gatherer of business rather than a hunter. For
Exactly.
business.
Right.
Very different.
Yeah. So I think we can get into it as far as like part time. Do we think you could go from part time to full time now that we've defined kind of the market in a down market?
I think you can. I think it's just not common. And so again, if we're looking at, okay, well, right now, I think a lot of people would say, no, it's not. You can't do that. It's too hard. The interest rates are too high. Nobody wants to buy houses anymore. But I think collectively, we know that that's not true. And anybody who's doing any amount of production would say, yeah, I mean, it's a little. You have to work a little harder. You might have to have more conversations to get a transaction. That ratio might be a little different. Your conversion rate might be slightly different. You might have to pivot some of your activities, but you can still do business and do very well. So I think it's possible, but I think we need to uncover really like what makes that possible. How can you have a job where you're working X amount of hours? How much hours do you realistically actually have to do in real estate?
Mm-hmm.
And you can just answer that off the bat. How many hours a week does your typical full-time agent prospect?
Quote unquote full time.
Full-time prospect.
Full-time. Sure.
Yeah, and let's just say that they do
Maybe define. Yeah.
Yeah.
how many open houses would they be doing a month? Maybe 2 open houses a month, if that. So I mean, I think that maybe 2 hours of prospecting a week for most agents
Is what they're really doing.
right is what they're really doing.
If that. Yeah.
Coach Cheplak, I mean, he just said this kind of out of the blue. It was weird, but like he was like, "Hey, if you have part-time agents," and I love part-time. He said, "I love part-time agents. I was a part-time agent," and he was nuts. He was working at one of the casinos in Vegas, all-nighters, and then he would go home, like doze off for a little bit, wake up, and prospect all day. But he said, if you are a part-time agent and you're working 40, 60-hour work weeks, you need to commit to doing 2 hours of prospecting 5 days a week. If you can do that, you will outwork most full-time agents, and within 3 to 6 months, you will be in a position to go full-time.
What do you really need to go full-time, right? You want that 3 to 6 months of a security net in terms of living expenses to quit your 9 to 5 and give up that paycheck. What does that look like? 3, 4 transactions? So if you can put in those 8, 10, 12 hours in a week prospecting on a regular basis, that should, if you do it correctly, lead to those 3 to 6 transactions, that money in the bank, which will allow you to easily quit that 9 to 5 and jump into it full-time.
I think people just aren't willing to do that. Like
Well,
most
Right.
people
Yeah.
who say, oh, I'm going to be a part-time agent, think that what that means is they can do an open house once a month. They can post a little bit on social media and their friends or family are going to start hiring them. And so that's why I don't think they ever make that transition, is because nobody is actually willing to work that hard.
Well, I think it's out of sight,
have a
out of
full-time
mind.
job and work. Yeah.
Like if it's not, they're not dependent on it, then they don't need it,
Right.
and their back isn't up against the wall, and that's why. And I thank God Kelly kept her job, because I mean, Kelly, like, keeping her job is why we are where we are, because she supported us. While I had my head up my ass and just trying to figure out like how do I do this whole thing? I just didn't. I was looking through photos the other day of like that time period, and I was like, what the hell was I doing? Like all week long, when I had no idea of how I should be prospecting, where I should be, and so forth. But I do think that Kelly made that transition, and then her first full year in real estate, she closed over 30 deals. and so like
Impressive.
yeah, but the thing was that she went from her full-time job and she started seeing like, okay, like I need to quit because I'm writing contracts or I'm doing listings or I'm whatever. And a lot of it was like my stuff because I don't know what I'm doing behind the computer. She was
I
helping
was
me.
his assistant. I actually had 4 jobs, if you count that.
So what did it look like working a full-time job? Everyone calls it a 9 to 5, but more often than not, they're an 8 to 5 or an 8 to 6 or something like that.
Right.
What did it look like with your time commitment in real estate? So if I'm sitting here and I'm listening to this or I'm watching this and I work 8 to 4 at an office, for example, what can I do with my time to really do that 2 hours, 5 days a week of diligent prospecting?
Sure. Well, I think the good thing about traditional hours is you have your lunch breaks and you have your nights and you have your weekends where you're not working, and that's when most people want to look at real estate, or that's when most people are at open houses. So if you have a traditional, hourly job, then that's actually a good thing because you can use all those other hours to actually work. And that's what I did. I mean, I would use every single lunch break to be doing something. I mean, a lot of times it was maybe making flyers, whether that was for an open house or for circle prospecting. And then sometimes it'd be follow up every day on my drive home. I would sit in an hour and a half of traffic every
Ugh.
day. Yes, I don't miss those days.
Oh my gosh.
That would be my time for calling past leads, calling.
That was your hour.
So you have your hour of
Yes,
power.
while
right?
I was in the car in traffic, because I could do that because I was only going 5 miles an hour. So that I did that, and then every weekend I was in open houses.
So she was working in or on her business, whether it was on her lunch break or in traffic. And then I remember even like on the evenings, sometimes if she was
Showings, yeah.
showings or like join me for listing appointments. But on the weekends, she was in an open house.
Yep.
Saturdays and Sundays, she was in an open house. And, and she was, and I think one of the biggest things is that people underestimate the time it's going to take them to get the experience they need. That's why it's not like you need to work your ass off 10 hours. It is all of you need to hurry up the process of getting the reps in so that you can gain that experience. And then once you're in front of that open house, in front of those people, not what to say, but how to say it.
Yeah.
So that was like about 2 to 3. Well, really, because I've had my license 8 years, so I was part time for 2 years probably at least before I went full time. So I was doing open houses for a year or two before I went full time, and that gave me the experience that as soon as I was full time, I literally got my first deal the next week. Like, because I was
awesome.
already up and running, I knew what I was doing. It was just a matter of literally having more time.
Yeah.
Just consuming real estate with all of your free time that wasn't spent at your job.
Well, that and like I would listen to, if I wasn't calling a prospect on the way home, I'd be listening to podcasts, reading books. I mean, just
Educating.
completely learning and studying. Yeah.
I think you didn't fall into the myth of flexibility, because I think that's what it boils down to, right? Like you romanticize what real estate is, and what do most people want? They want flexibility with their time. But then what that translates into is they get their license and they treat it flexibly, and they don't put in the work. They don't set aside the time. They don't. I mean, who wants to go and work a full job and then be making calls all the way home, and then on their lunch break and you're never relaxing, and you feel like, well, this isn't the flexibility that I wanted, and so then you end up quitting. But if you know like what you did, which was, this is going to lead to something.
Exactly.
If I just put in all of this work and this effort and this time, the repetition now, I'll have that flexibility later. But it's that myth of flexibility up front it's not real.
It's not a good side gig. I mean, let's be honest. Like if I was going to think of a side gig to supplement my income and I had a conventional 9 to 5, I'd do a million other things before I'd get my real estate license.
Right.
It's a stepping stone.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people have that mindset of, I can keep my job as an accountant and work 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, but as long as I tell my friends and family I'm a realtor, they'll use me and I'll get 5 or 6 deals that way.
And that's definitely not what someone wants. Most agents don't want someone that's part-time because they know you're not truly dedicated to serving them. You have so much other things going on. How can I truly, give you all my time and energy? But if you use it as a stepping stone, this is just temporary, and I still am going to give it my all. Even if I have to take less clients, or even if I have to hire a showing assistant, whatever it is, have a team that's supportive of me, I'm still going to give my client everything I have, even though I have a full-time job.
One thing that I think we did, which was really helpful in trying to get Kelly out from the part-time to the full-time, was putting a goal. So I think whether a goal or an end date, right, in mind is something that people that are part-time wanting to go full-time should do. Now, for me specifically, I didn't do that because I know that there's no way I could have gone part-time to full-time. I would have laid back on that biweekly check, and until I got fired or laid off, which a lot of people did at NOV, got laid off, and then it's like, oh shit, like what now? What do I do? But I quit my job, and I could do that because Kelly still had her job. I quit, went full-time into it, and that worked for me. Kelly said, "Hey, I will quit my job and join real estate full-time when we can make what we made on both of our salaries, in 1 year." And so it eventually, we had to figure some things out. But the second 6 months of my career, we made about $100,000. That next 2 quarters, that next 6 months, made it again. Then and I was like, all right, like you can quit. And she was like, no, I don't think I'm ready to quit. And then that next quarter, the third quarter of that next year, we made the entire amount that she said was our goal. And she was like, all right, fine, I'll quit. And so she finally joined at the end of that next year. So, and I was very happy to have her. She started working then. I think she got her first deal that December, and 28, 29 more, that next year. So
I'm interested to know, like, what's going on in your head? What are you feeling? What are you thinking as you're going through that? Like that kind of story of like the average day. And because I think we could also, the takeaway from this could be this romanticized version of like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go out there and hustle and grind, and I can do the same. And like maybe, but a lot of people can't. I'm the same. I had to cut the parachute because I knew that if I was part-time, I wouldn't do well. But somehow you did. So like, how did you overcome maybe those times when you wanted to be lazy, or when you're like, you're frustrated, you had a client, or?
Well, I know you talk about like people get into real estate for flexibility. I don't think that was ever my mindset. Was never like, okay, this is a great, because I can make my own schedule. I've always just been a hard worker. I've always had multiple jobs. I've always been going to school and having a job and I did hair and makeup. So I don't know. That's just me.
Sounds like you were doing like 60-hour weeks whenever you were a part-time agent. Like that was the norm, right?
Yeah. And I think I was like, okay, I have a regular job. Then I'm going home and just chilling on the weekends. Like something's not right. Like I just needed more fulfillment, I think.
Okay.
So I think for me, that was why real estate was like, okay, this is a really good goal to work towards. And every year I've always had stronger goals and higher goals, and it gives me something to it motivates me. And I love having whatever the goal is. I have to have something new that I'm achieving. That's just how I am.
but it's something other than just, this looks like fun. I hear the money's great. I'm going to do this. You have to find something else that's a little bit more real and personal to yourself.
What do you, was there a, as Ryan Serhant kind of in his book, like the back against the wall, like, did you have something like that was like the motivator to work that hard?
Well, no, because Cole was saying it was like the finances. That was never really my thing. It's always been like a really nice bonus. So I think it's just first of all, I got into real estate to help people out. Truly, I know that sounds like cheesy, but that really was one of the main reasons, because all of my jobs have had something to do with helping people, and I felt like this was like the most impactful way, that you can truly help a family, and so that was really what I liked specifically about real estate. But other than that, I think starting our own business, because you are your own entrepreneur as a realtor, I think that was super exciting for me. I think a lot of the back end, like the operations, I still do that for the Bridge Group today. Kind of setting all those up for Cole, for our previous team. I would do all their marketing and all their operations while I was doing all these other things. So I think kind of just building a business as well was really motivating for me, because in real estate, that's what we do.
Very cool.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I think it's just interesting to get in to the kind of behind the scenes, like, because it's one thing to just say like, okay, go out and do these 2 hours and do this, and very practical,
right?
But then in the middle of it, like you have maybe you're married, you have family struggles, you have emotional stuff, you have like there's other things that happen in life that derail so many people, and they never get to actually reach that goal that they set for themselves. So I'm always interested to like, okay, but like what was that really like? Because too often we like kind of gloss
Yeah.
over the difficulty of it.
Yeah.
But
No,
like
it
that's
was
hard.
definitely hard. Being the best. I want to be the best. Cole wants to be the best. My goal was to make sure he was MVP. I finally beat him at the end and got MVP at the very end. So I think being
It still keeps me up at
Still,
night.
you're still hurt. Still keeps me up at night.
truly being the best, like that's always been a motivator for us. But is it hard? Absolutely. I think the hardest part was the pressure that, for once you actually did have a client, like you had to perform, and like I can't leave work to service this
Sure.
client.
But
That was hard.
But doomsday scenario, what, 3 hours before a response to something, 4 hours before a response to something. So unless you're like in option period or dealing with a multiple offer situation, chances are waiting 2 to 4 hours to get back to your client isn't going to make or break the deal or make or break the experience.
Well, and I think for us, we had a support. So Cole, I was lucky to have Cole, who was full time, that could take care of the client. But also the team we were with, they had the transaction coordinators and things like that. So I think if you are part time and you are doing it at a high level, having a team or some sort of support system that can help you in those times, to not be on your own little island, like that, I can't imagine having done all this and being on my own island. I don't think I could have done it.
Someone you can text and say, hey, I'm busy for 2 hours. Can you please call this person and just see what they need and what the deal is and let me know. Fill me in kind of thing.
And having a broker that actually, well, we had a team leader, but having a broker that answered, like a lot of you agents don't have that.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we need to have people that are responsive in real time helping us. And otherwise there's no way.
Sure.
I have a question. If you had to put a number of how many hours you spent per week on average as a realtor while working full time, if you could try to think of like a ballpark range,
Sure.
just might help people understand how little, but how much it really is, I guess.
I mean, at least probably 10 to 15 hours.
And that includes 2 open houses a weekend.
Yeah, because I mean, if I did 2 open houses, I mean, I was doing hair and
That's
makeup.
8. Yeah.
Well, plus open house signs and all that. But I was doing hair and makeup on some weekends as well. So if I didn't have an open house, so it kind of depended on what I had going on. But yeah, that's why I say 10 to 15.
I'd say like 10, 12 hours a week really is all you would need to, if you actually did 10 to 12 hours of real work, 10 to 12 hours is all you would need to lay a foundation really of building a business.
That's a lot of like FaceTime, forward facing work with clients. And I think that, that is what allowed Kelly to build up her experience, in those first, 6-7 months of doing those open houses and kind of perfecting her script and the way that she was going to say something. But I feel like what happens typically is that someone gets their license, they're like, oh, I want to do this part-time. And they start out like, like all about it. They do the open house and they're like, oh shit, like I don't know what to say or how to say it, or this doesn't work, or they knock a few doors like Taylor did. This doesn't work, like they do that, and then they're like, well, it's there if I ever need it. And that's what it turns into is their goal from going. So that's why I say, like putting a timeline or putting a goal, a closing goal, or a GCI, gross commission income goal, and on your timeline and saying, I want to go from part-time to full-time by this date. And I know we were just talking about Denise Blackburn, who is in our downline in EXP. She, we listed her house. Like she was a client at first, and then she was like, I want to do real estate. And is absolutely
if they can do it, I can do it.
Yeah, that's what she said. And but the thing was that, and she was your boss at one time.
My old job.
Yeah, and then you became her mentor in EXP, and she went like on wildfire
deals last year as a solo agent.
Yeah, she was in the 20s last year as a solo agent.
Yeah, and within EXP, and she quit her job and went from part time to full time, and really was able to have that same experience, which it can be done. And I think it's rare that it is, because it's rare that you have a Denise or a Kelly that is driven that way to say, okay, these are the hours, the few hours that I have to work on real estate, but by God, I'm going to work on real estate during those few hours and nothing else.
Right. Yeah. I think it goes back to like, not that you have to have every single moment of every day figured out ahead of time, but having some sort of plan.
For sure.
Most people just start without that. And it's that cheesy saying, like, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. It's that, but like, even if the plan when you start is just, I will be full-time at some point, and I will use the time that I have, that spare time outside of my normal job, to always be doing something to move that needle, even if it's just a little bit, to make some sort of progress. Even that is enough to at least get you some sort of momentum. It's just too often people just kind of stumble in it, and then they don't really know what they're doing, and they don't really know what to start on, and they don't have that team or a guidance or even just somebody else to be like, hey, you should try doing this. You should do an open house every single weekend. Like, do it for 3 hours. Like, that was a model that you were able to sort of be like, okay, well, they're doing that, so like I'm going to do an open house every single weekend.
Yeah.
But like some people don't have that. They don't.
It's hard too, because a lot of teams that I've noticed from interviewing a lot of part-time agents for the Bridge Group Collective, a lot of teams don't even accept part-time agents.
Right.
Like, you have to be full-time or we don't want you. But then how does that allow you to learn the skills to actually jump into it on a full-time basis? It's just a matter of being diligent with your time, and 10, 12 hours a week of prospecting is more than your average full-time agent even does. So that just kind of goes to show how fast that path to full-time and quitting that 9 to 5 can be.
Yeah. I mean, I think we answered the question that you can be a part-time agent and be successful. You can do 30 deals a year. Like, it's possible. Yeah. But the caveat to that is you have to have some sort of plan if you're going to do that. But it's not like this insurmountable, impossible thing. 10 to 12, 10 to 15 hours a week. If you with diligent, planning and knowing what you're going to do and utilizing your time well, like, yeah, you can. Even in what we would say is not like that high COVID. Yeah. Everybody wants to buy a house because rates are super low. Like, that's not how it was whenever you were part-time.
No, and I would say it's actually better that it's not that way right now, because showing homes during a COVID market, you had to show it within a few hours. Otherwise it was sold.
Minutes.
Yeah. So now you don't know, you have a little bit more flexibility with showings where you can be, the buyers are a little bit more flexible. But having a showing assistant, I would say that would probably be one of the biggest things as a part-time agent that you want to have, is someone that can show properties for you on a weekday while you're working, if the buyer insists on that or they need that.
Yeah, and equally to go along with that is someone to train you how to use a showing assistant.
True.
Because
and what is a showing assistant?
Well, yeah, no, well, I mean, I think that everyone always when they come onto the team and they're like, how do I use it? I don't want to use a showing assistant because I don't want my clients to feel like I'm abandoning them or whatever. And it's just it's the most idiotic thing to think that your client would disown you because you're using a showing assistant to accommodate their schedule. So just having a team lead or a mentor or a coach or someone to help you utilize that tool, is equally. But I think that like we can look at Samantha, right? Samantha is, and I guess this is just kind of not just part-time agents, but just any agent can absolutely crush it in this market. You look at Samantha just went through our launch pad. And this month or last month, August, she was up there in the top three
$1 million month.
$1 million month. And, whereas before she came in and she was like, I think I'm going to have to get a job. I think, and I'm just going to rat Samantha out. Like she was like, I think I'm going to have to get a job. Or, we said something about some kind of marketing piece for her the other day.
The Jeepers and their ducks, apparently.
Oh, yeah. And I was like, Samantha, Taylor gave you a great idea. You should get these branded ducks. And, and she was like, well, are you going to pay for that? And I didn't know that she was doing $1 million month.
I called her out. I said, you just sold $1 million in real estate. Buy your own ducks.
Right. Yeah. Like, it takes money to make money. But, you're on a full service team. We take care of everything. Buy the damn ducks.
Right.
So.
Yeah. 1 month prior, one closing prior to joining us, and is now at 4, if I'm not mistaken, in her first few months.
Yeah.
So, like, it's entirely possible.
But I thought the market was down.
Yeah. Exactly. Right. But, like, I think what we're also arriving at is, like, maybe you aren't that super driven. Success is the journey itself. It's not about the end. Like, I'm working hard and all of your time. But like, if you feel like if somebody feels like I don't know if I can do that. That's where I think that like the support system comes into play. It's like, I think too many people get into it and they are doing it on their own. That's why they fail.
It's very daunting.
But like, if you did have a team, you did have even like the collective, right? Like, even if you did have somebody that you could say like, what do I do? Like, help me put together a business plan, like learning about conversion and conversations to transactions and like what things should I be spending my time on, I think is what can help somebody who does want to do that part-time thing shortcut all the mistakes that we've made along the way to actually be able to do that.
Yeah.
Well, and I think also there are certain type of personalities like both of you guys that need to go full-time. So I think that there's a path for everyone and no path is the same. But for some people, going full-time right away isn't an option, right? So this part-time path is for people that need to get some reps under their belt or gather some savings, and that it's possible. And I think joining a team like the collective, the Bridge Group Collective, will give you those those steps to get there.
It's about maximizing. It's the conversation of how much time do you have to put into this, and how are we going to best utilize that time?
Right.
What's your schedule?
Yep.
And let's figure it out.
Yeah, I think you're working on like because we have a week in the life of the top producer for a full-time agent, and I think Taylor's working on a part-time
schedule. And
Yeah.
it's a lot of what Kelly was already doing. You know, it's okay, I'm driving to work in the morning. What am I doing? I'm listening to a real estate related podcast,
Yes.
thinking about how things go. What am I doing during my lunch break? Social media posts, making my marketing materials, things of that nature. My hour of power every evening on my way home. The best time to go door knock is what? Between 4 and 6. Guess what? You're home by 5 o'clock. Instead of going straight home, have your circle prospecting flyers with you. Go out and door knock after you're done with work. You're already dressed nice.
Yeah.
Open houses on the weekend. Your open house follow up during your lunch break. So it can very easily be done. It's just a matter of sticking to it and having a plan.
Being intentional with
Being
your time.
intentional with your time.
Yep.
You can't afford to not be intentional with your time if you do have a full-time job on top
Yeah.
of this.
Mhm.
Yeah, and one last thing is that we were talking about this earlier today, was that I think everyone that wants to go from part-time to full-time, or even if they want to stay part-time, underestimate the work that is involved in real estate. And I think that one transaction, it really is, if you think about it, 2 full-time jobs. Because it is a full-time job to market yourself, to prospect, in order to get the meeting to have someone agree to work with you. That is one full entire job in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
Then once they say, yes, Kelly, like I want you to represent me in one of the biggest, purchases of my life, then you're like, all right, cool. Now the other job begins, which means the search, the offer, the negotiation, the repairs, the all of that up until closing. So to do this part-time is a bitch. I mean, it really is. And I would never wish that on anyone, for them to think that they could just do that as a part-time gig for forever. But you really should have a goal of going from part-time to full-time, and you should have a GCI, an income, a goal, a closing goal, whatever it makes sense to you. And once you hit that, quit your job, walk
Rip the
away
Band-Aid
from it.
off.
Yeah.
The hardest part.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can say it because I did it, and you did it, and everyone in this room
Yeah.
did it.
Yeah,
And so
parachute.
That's true.
yeah, just cut it and go for it. But if you're like, man, I'm nervous, that makes me nervous. The best way to hedge your bets is to surround yourself with people that know what they're doing, that have done it, and that are going to give you clear-cut direction on how to be as successful as they were.
Well, I think that this was a. How do I end it? I don't even know. What am I saying? Yeah.
I just thought of something we didn't talk about, but we don't have to say. It was the fact that people that want to do it part-time think that all their friends and family are going to just run to them, and you have to go out. That's why they got their license. Oh, I'll just do it for my friend or my family whenever they need it. They're not going to use you because you've never done a transaction. All of your first transactions need to be people you don't know.
Yeah.
So that means you do need to go out there and prospect.
Well, and even if you let's just say you got lucky
Yeah.
and you did have 3 family members that did choose to use you, that's only 3. Like
Right.
at some point you'll run out of that. Like
Right.
it's not an endless pipeline where you're just going to constantly start
Right.
getting referrals. Like I remember there was a guy when we were at Remax and he was in the classes with Keith, and I was like, oh, like, well, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm part-time, just have my license. I just do it for friends and family. I was like, oh, cool. Well, like, how many deals have you done? He's like, well, I've had my license for 10 years and I think I've closed like 5.
Oh my gosh.
But like that's because like it's not gonna be, you're not gonna get 20 transactions from just people
That you
randomly.
know. Yeah.
He didn't get any ROI. Like he's been He literally
Yeah.
Just
You're paying
on,
for your
like,
license,
ATR
you're
dues.
taking your classes,
$255 a month to Remax
Yeah.
Westside.
all of your
True.
fees, all your subscriptions, like you're not really making anything. So
Yeah.
like I think I don't know. At the end of the day, like you can't rely on that, even if you did get lucky.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like it does happen. You might get, your sister is like, well, I'll use you. Like,
But I mean, I'm someone who's sold a lot of real estate to my friends and family. But my first deal came from an open house from a stranger that I
Yeah.
met while prospecting. No one wants to be the first client. Everyone wants to be the third, the fourth, or the fifth, but no one wants to be the first one or the second one.
Right.
And I think that's actually that goes back to like why it's helpful to be on a team, is because then you can rely on the team's numbers, the team's experience. You get to
Leverage,
so you get to
yeah.
leverage
You
that when
filling your
it,
social media with
yeah.
just listed and just sold, despite never
it
selling.
is
or
your
listing
first
anything.
deal,
Yeah.
but they don't know that.
Yep.
But you also have been learning from the other people. You've been gaining experience. You have somebody to ask questions to, so they don't feel like they're the first deal,
time. Yeah.
right? So I think we've established that it is a down market and it is very similar to 2008, but transactions still happen. People still sell houses. And I think we've also learned that you can be part-time and it's entirely possible to do this thing if you're intentional with your time, you plan. And I think, and we think, that having a team that surrounds you, that you can get help from, that you can get guidance and direction to help you shortcut some of those problems that we've all faced is going to make it a lot more likely that you'll actually succeed doing this thing part-time. But at the end of the day, you have to be driven enough and ambitious enough to actually like do the work. And I think we've also established that it's not easy. It's not like
Right.
everybody will be able to do this. A lot of people won't.
Yeah, full-time or part-time, you have to do the work. It's not just going to happen for you. And I think someone that is part-time with that motivation to go full-time honestly may have a faster path to success than your full-time agent that's just kind of lackadaisical trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
point.
A part-time agent who's actually being intentional with their time and using that 10 to 15 hours can do more than a full-time agent who's not.
Yeah.
Who's
They're
just kind of
focused.
sitting
Yeah.
around. Yeah. So if you need guidance and direction, we are actually putting on another round of Launchpad. So this is our training program that we do. It's a 4-week training. It's what we take all Bridge Group agents through. So whether you're part-time or full-time, if you want to learn the secrets of what has allowed us to be successful in real estate, you want to learn how to leverage your calendar, how to build a database, how to circle prospect, how to do a buyer consultation, how to have a listing appointment, how to have the right mindset around real estate and how you should think about your goal setting and actually building out a business plan. We cover all of that in Launchpad. So that's actually going to be in October. So you can actually sign up and register to be a part of Launchpad. It's free. Doesn't matter if you're with EXP, if you're with the Bridge Group, any brokerage, any team, solo agent, doesn't matter. We would love for you to be a part of it. We will actually be hosting it here in person at our new office. And we'll also have availability for you to join online if you absolutely have to. But I would encourage you to be here in person. Those who came in person really got a lot out of it this last go round. So we're super excited. And we've actually got a few extra classes that we've added in for this Launchpad that we really think is going to help improve communication and improve your ability to think on your feet. So those are going to be amazing classes. We're super excited for it. And all of us are a part of it, so you'll get to meet us and ask questions. So if you want more information about that, click the link in the description down below and also register so you can get the calendar invite and you can be a part of it. And thank everybody for joining us for this podcast yet again. Thank you guys for watching to the end, and we will see you guys on the next one.